All right, I'd like to call the December 2nd, 2010 Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. If you will all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, the first thing on our agenda today is citizen communication, and I don't have anyone having signed up with a blue card. If anybody wants to come forward and testify on non-agenda items, now would be the time. All right, we will move on to our first of several public hearings and discussion items. Our first public hearing today is the annexation for portions of the city of Damascus to the Library District of Clackamas County. And the board will be sitting as the Library District of Clackamas County Board for this issue. And we have Chris Story and Doris Grolbert, or just Chris today, to help us through
I'm
this.
not sure what happened to Doris. I hope she's feeling well. But I'll be happy to give you the full brief. This is the conclusion of a long process that we've been involved in. As you remember, we formed the Library District, and at that time, the city of Damascus opted not to participate in the vote for formation. After later consideration and some petitions by their citizens, they have chosen to put the matter on the ballot. They came before you as the Library District Board on July 1st asking for your permission to approve the annexation process. You as the board approved it. We had a second hearing on July 29th. You placed it on the ballot. They held the election, and it passed. So here we are with the final step, which is you as the board entering the order of annexation to put the city within the Library District boundaries.
Great. Good. It's a good story, and we're
Yes.
very pleased to be at this moment, I think. So do the commissioners have any clarifying questions at this point? Commissioner
Just one
Austin?
question, too. It seems like Tualatin added their portion into the district just recently through a vote of the people, and the board also accepted that in terms of annexing that piece of property, about 3,000 residents. And this includes a pretty large group of residents, too, now. So I'm just wondering, is there any component of the county that is left off right now? I'm thinking like...
Alas, there is one
Johnson
component
City?
left. The city of Johnson City opted out and has not petitioned to annex that. It's about 280 households.
Okay, so we're practically countywide.
Yes,
So we're
very much so.
this close to being-
It's a very small hole in a very big donut, you might say.
great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? No? All right. This is a public hearing, and if there's anyone who wishes to testify on this topic today, now would be the time to come forward, or I don't have anybody having filled out a blue card to testify on this either, so if you wish to testify on this, now would be the time. Not controversial. Everybody loves their libraries.
Fantastic.
So I will ask for a motion then for a board order approving the annexation for portions of the city of Damascus to the Library District of Clackamas County.
Chair Peterson, I move we approve the board order approving the annexation for portions of the city of Damascus to the Library District of Clackamas County.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved by Commissioner Austin and seconded by Commissioner Leininger. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Bernard?
I just wanted to make a comment. You know, these are tough economic times, and this is a tax increase, but 55.9 5% of the voters thought it was a good idea. And I think the library district has done a great job, and people are clamoring to get in. So congratulations to Damascus.
I just want to say thanks to our staff for continuing to work with the citizens after the final vote for the majority of Clackamas County. There were these folks that couldn't quite come to a decision before the deadline and now are coming forward. And it takes quite a bit of work to make this happen, as well as all the volunteers on the ground to make it happen. So thanks to them and all of their hard work.
If I could make one comment, I just realized this is something Doris would have said, which is even though they are not annexing to the district until the new year, the library district and the county libraries have started immediately honoring library cards from the people of the city of Damascus. And if there's anyone out there that has paid for a library card, they can get a refund prorated to the date of the election, actually, and continue to use those library services.
Oh, that's even better news. Are we going to be able to get anything to the city of Damascus, remind them to put that in a newsletter or?
I believe Doris and the library crew has already worked to publicize that.
Good. Very good. If there are no further questions or comments, I will call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for all of your work on this. Our next public hearing is approving the additional amount of financing not to exceed $12 million for wastewater treatment and conveyance infrastructure for Clackamas County Service District Number 1. We are now sitting as the Service District Number 1 board, and we have Chris Story again and Doug Waugh to help take us through this $12 million
authorization.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having the hearing for us. Just to give you some very brief background, in 2008, the district initiated Phase 1 of the Capacity Management Program. That program was intended to catch the district up in terms of its capacity needs and provide some cushion of growth going forward for a number of years. The initial estimate on that project was about $120 million, and that required about $95 million in borrowing, and the rest was to be funded from the district's SDC reserves and cash reserves. The financing was planned to be phased in over 3 years with, I like that, hearing myself.
Could you repeat that?
I already have, so. But anyway, so the financing was planned for a phase in over 3 years with the associated rate increases in each of those 3 years. And in 2008, we projected a rate of around $37 or $38 when all was said and done with this project, which is going to be in this current fiscal year. We also had a significant increase in the SDCs to help pay for this from about $2,200 to $6,600 per new connection. Since the initiation of that project, I'll just kind of summarize by saying there were a list of fairly significant issues that the district faced that created additional financing needs for the project. A large portion of those additional needs were offset by actions taken by the district. And significantly among those were elimination of unnecessary items from the project, extension of the pipeline project to allow for additional cash flows, and the extension of the debt service terms from 20 to 25 years. All those things helped to increase cash flow to help fund the project, to cut down the need for additional borrowing as much as we could. So in the end, we are looking for the $38 rate that we have now is sufficient to fund the last borrowing that we're going to be doing next week for the project. So that will be fine. And the staff respectfully recommends that the board adopt the order authorizing the additional $12 million in borrowing.
All right, we did have a study session on this, but do we have any clarifying questions at this point, Commissioner Bernard?
If SDCs do pick up and more revenue does come in, which we all hope will happen soon, is there an opportunity to buy down debt at an earlier time?
Yes, our terms under the offering statement that we will be selling the bonds under allows us to prepay at certain points, sometimes with penalties, sometimes without, but SDC revenues are eligible for debt repayment.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Langer.
In the affordable housing sector, which I used to work before I came to this job, there is this essentially a contractual obligation for a lot of funding streams to create capital replacement reserves. And I know that this board has not been in office for more than 2 years at this point. So whether or not historically we should have been putting away replacement reserves is something over which we didn't have control. But in the future, I mean, it happens that we are doing some borrowing now at a time when people are feeling extremely price sensitive. We have to do it, I understand, because DEQ order required that we remediate some effluent discharge in the Willamette, and because we were getting close to a building permit moratorium. Neither of those would be good for the community or the economy. But going into the future, what is our expectation about whether it would make sense to incrementally put away capital replacement reserves so that the next time, foreseeably, we need to do major work, we have that money on hand? Is that a practice we're going to look at? Is that something that?
That's an excellent question. We've actually initiated our asset management program that's under the management of Dan Henniger in our department. That's been a big issue and effort of our department over the last number of years, and we're coming around to understanding what those costs will be in order to maintain our assets going forward. So.
Yeah, and one of the challenges that you'll face is to build up. CCSD1 actually had a substantial reserve at the time that it initiated Phase 1, a little over $20 million in reserve. And yet it was a drop in the bucket considering the massive capital costs of constructing additional wastewater treatment facilities. So it's unlikely that the district would be in a position to build reserves sufficient to never borrow to construct a capital project. To do so, you would have to have rates that would be, I think, be unacceptable to our ratepayers.
But we are looking at doing something towards that through our cash management system too, and looking at what we can do to actively manage the asset base we do have.
Great. Is there a best practice on that is, implemented in many other jurisdictions that similarly have to deal with treatment capacity, asset management? Is there a best practice?
Yeah,
on that?
there are asset management programs throughout the country in similar departments to ours, and we're looking at those and emulating many of their practices in the way we're implementing ours.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Commissioner Bernard.
This has actually been a discussion that, small businesses write off for depreciation. And of course, the goal is to put the money in the bank, but that never happens. It's very, very difficult to do that. And it's almost impossible when you're restricted by the fact that you can't raise rates to build up savings. And I'll bet you there's a law that doesn't allow you to stock that money away over a certain percentage. And also in this market, what interest would you get on that investment? It would be virtually nothing. And that
is true.
It's it's a lot cheaper just to borrow the money at the time. Of course, a year and a half ago it was more expensive, or 2 years ago it was more expensive to borrow money than it is now. So it would have it's a good idea to do it this way. We talked about this at the city of Milwaukee a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is a public hearing, and I don't have anyone signed up to testify on this public hearing. But
Yeah, I
County
just
Administrator
have
Steve Wheeler.
a couple quick things to add on the issue of financing.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
be talking with our regional partners on this about financing strategies and types of fund development as soon as tonight, actually. I think the meeting is. Also, just worthy of note, if you go back a generation or a couple generations ago, we had a much greater partnership with the federal government in funding these major wastewater treatment facilities. Now it is more go on your own, so it is a little more difficult to get your own financing together. So you end up cobbling together a variety of different areas in finance.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. Again, if there's anyone who wishes to step forward and testify on this, now would be the time. Seeing no one coming forward and having no blue cards before me, I will ask for a motion.
Chair Peterson, since we're all sort of looking at one another, Chair Peterson, I move we approve the board order approving the additional amount of financing not to exceed $12 million for wastewater treatment and conveyance infrastructure for Clackamas County Service District Number 1.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Austin and seconded by Commissioner Lehan. Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Well, the one thing I would add,
Commissioner
Chair Peterson, is that I think we all miss the early 70s where the federal government contributed a lot towards these facilities. And it's not just our county, but if you looked around the country, a lot of other communities are struggling with ways to finance these large infrastructure projects. So I think, from once this facility is completed, we will have a capacity for some time to come. So it depends on how quickly the market changes and more SDCs come in. So it looks like there's plenty of time to plan for an asset management strategy to try to figure out how to build up reserves sufficient to meet any new needs that will come forward. So appreciate all the hard work that has been done on this project over time, well before we started on this board. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I just wanted to add, when we talk about asset management and reserves, is that just to put the caveat out there that government always, and I know this from municipal government as well, walks kind of a fine line, because what would seem like prudent financial policy to put reserves aside so that you'll be able to take care of this in the future means whatever reserves we put aside are, since our money comes only from the public, in one manner or another, it means that that money is being held by the government that otherwise would be out there circulating in the private sector, or still in somebody else's bank account in their reserves to fix their own roof. So you're never. It isn't good policy for us to be 100% reserved up when the rest of the public is not. So, you know, that it is a line that you walk between holding the public's money here so that we will have it when we need it versus being a little bit more edgy because we're trying to keep more of that money circulating in the private. So, that's a discussion that is eternal in government. About where the best place to fall is on that.
Very good point. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you
and
very
we
much.
look forward to the completion of this project soon.
Yes.
We'll move on to a discussion item. We have the first discussion item is Water Environment Services. Don't anybody leave. It's approval of a construction services agreement for Clackamas County Service District Number 1 Intertie 2 Diversion Project B 20 30-inch force mains. It's exciting. I'm announcing that the board is sitting as the Service District Number 1 board yet again.
Again, good morning, Commissioners, Board of Directors for the district. The project before you is the last major project of Phase 1 of the Capacity Management Program. It is the pipeline that will connect portions of Service District 1's service territory to the Tri-City Service District plant. The route selected for the pipeline came from a long public process and was found to be the most acceptable route at the most reasonable cost. The project starts at around the Three Creeks area by the Lowe's, goes down the west side of 205, and we are working with county planning on the pump station that will go near the Lowe's there. We're asking for the board to adopt the staff's recommendation enumerated in the staff report today, approving the contract and signature authority for director of the department.
Okay. Any clarifying questions?
Actually,
Yeah, Commissioner Leininger?
apropos of what we were just talking about, I know that this work is really important and essential because it's protecting public health and protecting the health of the Willamette River. And it's also really important because it's creating some great jobs. This is a major capital investment. Can you speak to the number of jobs that this overall project is going to be creating? And I believe these are all private sector jobs in the construction sector.
Go ahead.
Mike Kinsey, Director, Water Environment Services. We had done an analysis, I think it was about 2 years ago, and we were over 200 jobs over the 3-year period of this construction program. And about 70% of the funds themselves were going to local vendors as opposed to out-of-state vendors. So it was a pretty successful project or program for the region.
Thank you.
In fact, Mike, when we attended a contract managers association meeting, we were getting a lot of comments about, thank goodness that there was some work out there, and it was right here in Clackamas County, and that it was few. These types of projects are few and far between, especially for big concrete projects. So,
The jobs associated with this pipeline will go through 2012. So,
Great. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, this is a discussion item. If anyone wishes to speak on this item, now would be the time. I don't have anyone signed up, but if you wish to testify. All right, seeing no one coming forward, I will ask for a motion.
Chair Peterson, I move we approve the construction services agreement for Clackamas County Service District Number 1, Intertie 2, Diversion Project B, 20 and 30-inch forced mains.
Is there a second?
Second.
If I look the other way, you guys are going to do it. It has been moved by Commissioner Leininger and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, last on the agenda before Commissioner communication is consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chair Peterson, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Austin and seconded by Commissioner Lehan that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Leininger and then Commissioner Bernard.
Oh, okay. I had a couple of comments. One thing is there's an agreement with Westland for the diversion program, which is a program that works with juveniles when they commit a minor crime and gives them an opportunity to kind of meet some of their peers and be directed in a more positive way. And also there's a Parrot Creek contract increase, which would increase the beds at Parrot Creek, which is a facility that works with juveniles. Again, I think the commission has said that one of our priorities is to help those most vulnerable, and certainly juveniles when they can't return home for some reason, such as family violence or inability to control them or something, that they go to a facility that offers them an opportunity for counseling and some programming. And so the Parrot Creek's a great one of our facilities in Clackamas County.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Leininger.
You. There's another really wonderful project among these consent agenda items that I wanted to call out, and that is it's a home agreement. It's a funding agreement related to an Oak Ridge Park affordable housing development that's going to happen in Lake Oswego, really near my kids' school. And this project has been underway in Lake Oswego for a long time. It's a community that really has an intense need for more affordable senior housing. It's going to be a 45-unit affordable housing project for seniors, people 62 and older with very modest incomes, and only 3% of the total project cost, which is total project cost is $11.5 million. Only 3% of that is coming from Clackamas County. The huge majority of that funding is coming from the federal government. So it's an example of Clackamas County, through our partner Northwest Housing Alternatives, which is a nonprofit, leveraging a bunch of out-of-state money to create a bunch of construction jobs and a lot of deeply needed affordable housing for seniors in our community. It's a wonderful project, and I want to commend them on getting it to this stage.
Any other points?
Sure.
Commissioner Austin.
Chair Peterson, there's also an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the Clackamas Community College for providing grant opportunities for small business owners, up to $50,000 total, but I think it's something like $500 per business owner to send them to training. And this, in the past, has been very successful, so it's something that is really, really, I think, important. We've talked about this before. We found dollars that were saved from administrative costs, and so putting it into a program like this is really, really helpful, I think. So I'm glad that it's showed up on our consent agenda at this point. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other further discussion? With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thanks. One of the things I just need to mention at this time is that if anybody has their telephone, their cell phones on, it does interfere with the sound system in here. So when you hear some of the buzzing and stuff, that's actually from the interference from cell phones. So if we can turn them off or put them into sleep mode, that would be great. Thank you. Finally, Commissioner Communication. If I turn this way, Charlotte, would you like to go?
I just wanted to mention that along the lines of on the affordable housing projects, important milestone is next Tuesday, the 7th at 3 o'clock. Creekside will be holding their grand opening. Anyone is welcome to attend. Creekside is an 84 or 80 unit senior affordable housing project in Wilsonville. People have been moving in for about the last 2 weeks, and it's a fabulous place. People are very happy with how it turned out, and did a lot of innovative things in the construction of it, including a sky bridge that goes directly to the senior center so that they don't have to go up and down stairs to get there, and or out in the weather to get from the senior living facility into the senior center. So this has been an exciting project. It took a lot of work on the part of many of us on the commission, as well as the city of Wilsonville and other partners, Northwest Housing Alternatives, again being our major partner on this, and the builder. But another one of those projects that resulted in a lot of jobs over the last 2 years, and now is coming to fruition with housing for seniors. So that was the main thing, other than to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season.
So that's a total of 120 new units in Clackamas County. 130
Mm-hmm.
for senior low-income housing. That's amazing. That's actually quite a bit. That's great.
Well, let me talk a little bit about a policy advisory committee I attended this week on a corridor study. It's sort of at the intersection of 172nd to 190th, kind of extending north and south. And it's in between Damascus and Happy Valley. It also has an important connection into Multnomah County, so we have folks from Multnomah County being involved as well, Gresham. And it's an area that is now covered with mostly 2-lane roads, and we know the increasing pressure is anywhere from 20 to maybe, who knows what, 35,000 trips per day within that area. So it's an interesting planning process. We looked last night at about, I think, 20 different alternatives, and all kinds of criteria go into those alternatives, such as, how many stream crossings would one have to construct, and would you use existing roadways for the most part? What interaction would it have with existing housing or businesses in the area, or future businesses like a business park that Damascus might be willing to develop once their comprehensive plan and transportation plan are completed? So all these things go into these alternatives. I think the goal was to come up with about 5 major alternatives, and great staff support from not only our road department as well as Kittleson and Associates and others. So good turnout last night. There'll be further public meetings probably into the next year or two in terms of looking at the alternatives that have been at least put forward as possibilities, looking at everything including cost and ways to eventually pay for those improvements. But it's a great process. Being able to go out and look at all of the issues and bring together all of the major stakeholders as well. So making some progress on that issue.
Great. Commissioner Leininger?
I've been communicating a lot during this meeting, so I'm all set.
Commissioner Bernard?
Well, I had an opportunity yesterday to head up into our Clackamas County Forest and look at some of the projects that are going on. Actually stop at our last log sale project. Mm-hmm. Never had an opportunity to see a logging project in action. It was very rainy and very snowy. We got stuck up there for a few minutes. But it's interesting to be out in our forests and look at some of the projects we're doing and some of our partners are doing in a surrounding area. Other than that, there seems like there's been a number of meetings. We went to Salem this week and spoke to ODOT about a partnership on a redevelopment of a rest area and a solar project that might have some positive or negative impacts on that rest area. I thought it was a very good meeting with some great partners, so I look forward to those continued conversations. Other than that, have a great holiday if you don't watch another show, and look forward to finishing up the year.
Right. I just wanted to reiterate a couple things. One, I think we all know the exciting things that are happening with Oregon Institute of Technology consolidating all their campuses into Wilsonville over the next couple of years, into the old Infocus building. And so trying to keep up with OIT, I think, is going to be quite a lot of work for us in order to help them along. And I went last night to a open house that they had in downtown Portland in the Mercy Corps building called Solar Hope. It was an OIT joint project with a nonprofit that one of the professors started to take alternative energy engineers that have graduated and take them to Tanzania to install solar for folks. A lot of it was in schools and in medical buildings. Basically, any building that had a metal roof was, if there wasn't thatched, it was a metal roof because you can't really attach the solar to the thatched. But it did provide the opportunity to, something you'd never think of is keep homes and schools and medical places from burning down, because the amount of kerosene lamps and candles that are used, there are a lot of kids that die in dormitories as they're trying to study later at night because there's no electricity. And so they, that and water pumps and water filtration systems. So it was a good reminder of all the good things that OIT does in terms of educating these students, of looking at alternative ways to do business that are cost effective, not only for Tanzania, but also for Oregon. The other thing I just wanted to mention was the other, about actually 2 weeks ago, the Metropolitan Area Council for Good, which is a coalition of many different organizations, had a, what did they call it? It was a meeting where they had Chair Kogan and myself come and talk about one of their projects, their initiatives, domestic violence victims housing. And basically, they have started an housing alternative that if some family, a woman or a man with family in need, needs housing as quickly as possible, they have basically an affordable housing setup so that they can leave and move into a house, but they still have to pay. But it's a kind of a co-op situation rather than a shelter. Shelter is kind of for that emergency where you don't have any cash on hand, you might not even be employed. These are for families who are employed but need to get out of the situation but don't have an affordable place to move into. So they are looking at building on that model. They have opened one house in Clackamas County, and they would like to open many more houses in Multnomah and Clackamas as well as Washington someday. So it was they did a good job of getting a lot of different types of people there, from union to religious to just community members, and just raise the awareness of domestic violence within our community, but also the opportunities and the cost-effective ways that nonprofits can partner with the community to provide this housing. So it was a good meeting, and I appreciate them doing it, and I appreciate them moving forward with that. So the only other thing I've got is the board decided Tuesday in study session to add an additional public hearing to the vehicle registration fee discussion for the Selwood Bridge, and that is scheduled for December 8th at 5:30 p.m. here in the board hearing room at the Public Service Building at 2051 Kane Road in Oregon City, and that information is on the web at clackamas.us. So if you would like to come and give your thoughts to us that night, that would be great. We will also have an additional public hearing, as we said we would, on the 9th, the next morning, where the decision will be made. But we just wanted to add that extra opportunity for people to come in. So if you feel like that, the record is also open between now and then. And if you want to send in your comments, again, the email address is bcc@clackamas.co. Thank you, Mary. And Commissioner Lehan.
And the priority, as I understand it, on the 9th is for people who have not had it off.
8th and 9th.
Who've not had for both dates.
Yes.
The priority is for people who have not had an opportunity to testify before.
Correct. That is correct, and good point. Commissioner Bernard.
So there is a sign-up sheet, so people who get here early could leave early. And does it end at a particular time?
I don't think we've made that decision, but what we can do is look at the number of people who come and decide if we need to, if it's a lot of folks, we could limit testimony to a less than 3-minute.
Okay.
But we'll have to make that decision based on the amount of people, because I wouldn't want to change that too often. So,
Great,
okay.
thank you.
There's no further business from either county council or county administrator or the commissioners. Then we are adjourned. Thank you.